Hello, I'm Angel, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're a subscriber. Today, I'm talking with my friend Chelsea, and we are talking outlines. So let's get to it. Thanks for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
The outline.
The outline.
What is it?
Yeah, so the outline is kind of the pre-rough draft. Your very bare bones, what exactly you want to talk about in your paper, and the organization, I guess, in which you'll approach the paper.
How long should it be?
And I think it kind of hinges on how long your final paper is going to be, because if you're really just doing, let's say, 10 pages, your outline isn't going to be that long, maybe just a couple of pages. But if you're working more towards a 20-30 page paper, I would say between maybe 6 to 10 pages of an outline.
What are some must-haves? What do you think critical, do not skip this in your outline would be?
At least what I do, Roman numeral number 1, I'm going to put my thesis at the very top. Just as a constant reminder, even if it's just a rough working thesis, I want it up there to remind myself to constantly refer back to, this is what I'm talking about, this is what I'm working with. Because I think, especially in an outline, when you have all your ideas flowing at once, it's easy to kind of stray and go down some different paths. So I think that always helps me bring it back. And then you also make sure that you want to have at least some remnants of a hook, maybe an idea of what your hook is going to be, whether it's just a quote that maybe you're going to start with, introduction to that quote, or just kind of some context is crucial. And then I think you're going to want to work into your introduction, a couple pages of your introduction, just to, again, kind of keep your ideas on track. And then a rough outline of your historiography, at least know some authors that you're going to want to talk about and introduce, and also where your work kind of fits in with the current historiography. Yeah, and then you can kind of move into the meat and substance of what exactly your paper is going to be about, and developing that organization for how you're going to conquer this paper.
Right.
How do you like to tackle your outline?
I am one of those people who hates the blank page, so I like to have a blank page for the least amount of time possible. So I literally start with the word introduction, and then a couple of spaces, the word body, and then a couple of spaces, and then the word conclusion.
Okay.
And then I go back and I build it up the way that you were talking about. Because if I just sit there and think, my thesis is, well, that sounds lame, I really can't type very fast. And I'm sitting there and I backspace. But if I'm just like, okay, introduction, body, conclusion, and then I go back and start filling it in, it just happens so much faster for me. Is an outline a one and done thing?
Absolutely not. No, constantly re-outlining it. Even, like I said, like if you have a rough working thesis, you're constantly reworking that thesis and how it reworks into your outline and to your paper. It's constantly evolving. Even if you're just re-outlining different sections, like you're going to constantly find yourself doing that just because maybe you found new sources that you want to work in. I know my most recent paper, I have re-outlined my conclusion, I think 3 times now. It's constantly reworking what exactly you're talking about, where you want to move. But I do like what you said, coming back to outlining transitions. I think that would be really useful, and that's not something that I've done before, but I know I struggle a lot with transitions. So I think if I were to outline transitions, that would be incredibly useful.
Yes. Sometimes in classes, you turn in one outline. But if we're going to actually be productive writers of history, we should take it upon ourselves to do that re-outlining, just to make ourselves better writers.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Like I know even when I'm just writing, after I've turned in my initial outline, I constantly have a blank sheet of paper next to me, and I'm working through those sections, and I'm like re-outlining on that blank sheet as I go. Just handwritten, so it's just a very rough outline sketch, but I'm constantly doing it as I go through, and then I'm able to kind of check off what I've done so far, and then still be able to see where I need to move and what I need to work in.
What would you say to somebody who says, I don't need an outline, I can do this?
I would say you're probably wrong. Bless you if you are able to do that. You are, I think, a superhuman. But just at least for organization, you need an outline. Just because if you don't, you could have all sorts of different ideas floating around there, no transitions, no really path for what you're talking about or how your thesis correlates with any of your evidence. It could be a real mess.
Yes. How do you keep track of all of your sources for your outline?
Yeah, I have folders saved on my laptop that when I find my primary sources, secondary sources, if they're online, then I'll kind of save them to my desktop in a certain folder. That's kind of, the folders are labeled by the different sections of my outline so that I know what sources I'm using where. As far as if I have in print a secondary source or primary source, that can kind of get a little jumbled sometimes. I usually use my bibliography, and I'll make sure that I'm writing what section that goes in so that I'm able to just check it off, like, okay, I've used it, I'm kind of done with that part, unless I want to refer back to it. Yeah, annotated bibliographies are super useful for knowing when to use your sources, how you want to use them, and kind of keeping track of them as well.
Do you make your annotated bibliography while you're doing your outline, or?
I wouldn't say, very close in time, but not simultaneously. But usually I'll I'm not sure if I do one or the other first necessarily, probably usually annotated bibliography first, just so I know what sources I'm using, and then I'll kind of work them into my outline.
And how much detail do you go into in your annotation?
Yeah, I'll just kind of do a brief summary maybe of what the source is, and then how I want to use it. Sometimes if I think the author is important, I'll kind of do like a little blurb about them just to kind of remind myself. And then I might make a note what section I want to use it for.
Are you a handwriter or typewriting?
Yeah, before I especially like if I have an outline due for a class, the first thing I'm going to start with is handwritten, and I'm just going to kind of bare bones, very rough. These are my sections, these kind of what I want in my sections. And then I'm going to type it up. And then I'm going to put a little more meat into it. But as I'm re-outlining, those are all handwritten as well. If I'm like re-outlining by section, I'm handwriting.
And that's it for this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye! Alright, so here we go. I usually wave with my right hand, but now I'm going to try to wave with my left hand.
Okay. Maybe I'll just do a double.
Double wave.
You have a window.
No, you have a